I have no distraction for you this time. As I predicted, I was late again. I'll try to be a little more on time next season, but also, apparently, I have a lot to say about the 42 shows that are on this season's roundup, so forgive me, but I'll be being a little quieter for this one so I don't absolutely wreck my voice. I'm gonna be here for a while, so strap in. Also, probably worth mentioning that even though stuff like Jujutsu Kaisen, just, super mega big stuff, don't go on these roundups, I genuinely think Season 3 of Jujutsu Kaisen should be studied for, many generations to come. After the apocalypse, I hope the first thing the remnants of humanity dig up is a Blu-ray of Jujutsu Kaisen Season 3. Holy shit, man. Alright, anyway. Let's get this thing moving. First up is Sentenced to be a Hero. What's this? A dark fantasy full of violence with a revenge plotline by an animation studio with a point to prove? We haven't seen monster slaughtering look this good since... last year? Solo leveling? No, but in all seriousness, this is strong. The concept is pretty interesting, right? Becoming an immortal hero forced to serve the kingdom, constantly under threat of all kinds of monsters and a demon lord and the blight or whatever, and you can't die? Sounds like hell to me. Plus, our main character here has got a plenty good enough backstory to want revenge on the kingdom. This is one I don't particularly want to dive into spoilers for, because genuinely this is a great watch if you're into dark fantasy and action and all that jazz. But yeah, the main character Xylo is a very good one. His dynamic with Teorita, as it goes on, is charming as well. And as newer anime tend to do, this one injects just the right amount of silly humor into it for what it is without ever becoming nearly overbearing. The other characters aren't bad either. There's not much to them, but for some of the other hero characters, the ones who've been sentenced to this punishment, we get shown what they were accused of that resulted in them being sentenced to being a hero, and that's also how we see just how deep the corruption within the kingdom runs. It is absolutely diabolical, I tell you. So that helps us understand the characters and the world better, and just what kind of situation we're dealing with here. There's also a Holy Knight captain lady who is really serious, seems really serious and uptight, but eventually realizes Xylo isn't a bad guy at all and stands up for him to the kingdom proxies despite being a servant to the kingdom. Again, pretty standard, but she's a very welcome addition here. This one also has a lot of great attention to detail that just helps build the world in small ways. And the plot itself, like the events that actually go down, isn't particularly noteworthy on its own. It's mostly just a lot of monster slaughtering as Xylo and Teorita learn to work together, and as we meet a bunch of wacky new characters. It's really the world itself and the split between the people fighting against the Blight and all that, and then the coexisters, as they're called, who are assisting the Blight since they feel their struggle would be pointless and would rather get on the enemy's good side so they can be spared when humanity eventually loses. And it really comes to a head in the last episode of this season with a big old crazy twist at the very end. And don't get me wrong, it's not like the plot isn't enjoyable, because I think it is. It makes sense for what this show is. It's just that each individual fight or good deed that the heroes do isn't what actually matters in terms of the story. But the fights are very good. Animation goes crazy for sure. But yeah, this is very solo leveling coded, but even more fantasy, even more violent, even more gruesome, a whole lot more death, that kind of thing. But yeah, I enjoyed it. Definitely curious where it'll go from here in season 2. Next up is You and I Are Polar Opposites. Okay, I genuinely thought this would be a rivals or enemies to lovers situation, but actually, this starting off with Suzuki hopelessly down bad for Tani instantly makes this super fucking cute. I legitimately cannot tell you how much I was like, ugh, this is gonna be so lame going into this, and literally not even 2 minutes in to the first episode, and I said out loud, oh my god, this is the cutest thing I have ever seen in my life. Around this time last year, I praised Mona, or Medaka Kuroiwa is Impervious to My Charms, that anime, for like following the main girl and her inner monologue thought process as she tried to win over a seemingly indifferent guy that she had a crush on, but this one does that without the obnoxious fan service and instead relies on the characters' exaggerated personalities, like caricatured personalities. And my god, is it super charming. Like, plot-wise, in terms of what actually happens, it's completely unremarkable, but the way this show's characters talk to each other and express themselves so openly just makes this such an easy watch. Like, who cares what they do? Because you know it's going to be silly and fun. That's the feeling you get when you're watching this. The show also does another great thing in clearly addressing the communication issues that various characters have throughout the show. I would much rather watch a romance show that showcases a model couple who talk openly to each other and just enjoy their lives together than a show full of pointless drama that could have been easily resolved. So Miyu and Yusuke, the main two, are a model couple in the sense that it's their first real experience with dating and they're figuring it out as they go and just having fun being with each other. That's how it should be. And even with some of the supporting characters and their romance angles, they really confront their feelings and are open about them. So that makes this one much easier to watch compared to if it was just filled with dumb drama. Although the brunette dude does kind of weird me out. And not only all that, the art style for this is super charming, and the way the anime expresses the characters in silly ways just makes this even more fun to watch. Miyu especially is very expressive and tends to shapeshift from time to time, kind of like another pink-haired high school girl we know. And it's just so much fun to watch. And although I wouldn't know this firsthand, apparently the English dub for this goes kind of hard, so if you're a dub person and like romance anime, give this a watch. Or if you're a sub person and like romance anime, give this a watch. The cuteness and the silliness are both top tier. Big old thumbs up from me. Next up is Tamon's B-side. Oh man, this was the silly injection the slice of life shoujo genre needed. I dig this one. A little spoiler for the video here, I guess. This is sort of like the reverse of the anime I'm going to be talking about right after this one, in the sense that this one is very self-aware of the silly reverse harem shoujo anime tropes, the stuff that would never happen in real life, and yet still does them anyway. And because it's self-aware, it actually adds to the effectiveness of the delivery of those tropes and even injects them with silliness that you don't see in other shoujo anime. A perfect example of what I mean is the little bit where Tamon bakes a cake for Utage and then lifts up her chin like, eat, go on. And then it's like tastes kind of mid. This is full of self-aware bits like that, but that doesn't stop this show from just piling on the sexy boy fan service, and it's all the better for it. And actually, there really aren't a lot of shows out there that dive even a little deep into the psyches of male idols, because it's similar but also a very different ballgame from female idols. And in this, they very intentionally exaggerate the contrast of the boys' true personality versus their on-stage personalities, the gap moe, if you will, for comedic or dramatic effect. But I also think Utage is a really good lead for this show because I think she's realistic while also fitting into the regular girl trope for a shoujo main character, you know? I think when you are such a fan of an idol or a group of idols, real or fictional, most people are able to distinguish their delusions from reality. Idols' jobs are, as most idol anime will tell you, to give their fans a dream or a delusion. So most people will realize that their delusions will never be reality, yet they hold on to them because it's fun. So Utage simultaneously is able to understand these boys' situations and sort of ground them in reality, while also being an obsessed fangirl, and distinctly separate those two aspects of herself. Well, you know, all that, and I think she's just fun too. As for the plot, really not anything worth mentioning, just some decent slice of life beats, but I do think the development of the very wholesome relationship between Utage and Tamon is done well, not paced too fast or anything, and just enjoyable to watch unfold. There's also some decent stuff aside from them as well, even if it's short and sweet. The thing with Yellow forget his name, but Yellow and his ex-girlfriend, teacher lady, comes to mind. But Utage just really enjoys the time she spends with Tamon despite him being mega anxious all the time, and for him, she not only grounds him in reality, but also helps him realize that the sort of abstract dream that he declared so recklessly in his debut was actually helping people out there, and she's there for him in a way no one else is. So it's just very sweet. And of course, Utage tries to separate herself at the end, distance herself, because she thinks she'll jeopardize his appeal as an idol or just cause a huge scandal or whatever. And she probably will. But too bad, because true love wins or whatever. So, again, the visuals in this are very expressive too. Art style's great. 3D models look a little janky, but very excusable. So yeah, this is a good old time. Big recommend from me, especially if you're a fan of not even just shoujo, but romance anime in general. Maybe this will be your gateway to even more shoujo anime. I don't know. But I had a good old time. Next up is Tune Into the Midnight Heart. And in my heart of hearts, this is as good as slice of life harem anime get. I think if you're a harem anime enjoyer on any level, this will hook you right in. I've said this before about this particular series when I talked about the manga, but I think the strength of any harem is when each individual lady actually feels like she's important to the show, not just to the main character. So when they all have goals, when they make strides towards those goals, and even better, if the main guy is able to help them in a meaningful way. And this one absolutely nails that. In fact, it's basically what the whole show actually is. It hard locks in on focusing on each of the 4 potential Apollos and what they want to achieve and how they're all taking small but steady and consistent steps to getting there. It's super grounded and sensible in how it approaches and does everything, and the way it mixes in the romance angles and fan servicey stuff is not too much but not too little. And even beyond that, the mystery of who Apollo could be lingers over this whole show, and for those who are inclined to more actively engage with anime, they could be looking for certain clues from each girl that might align with what we know about Apollo, so there's a level of intrigue to everything while not outright affecting how the show progresses in its story. Man, it is the harem show, in my opinion. You can just tell the author has such an immaculate sense in terms of their characters, how they're presenting their characters, how the harem aspects are presented too. It's just the perfect balance of everything that can be good about slice of life harem anime. And Arisu is just perfect. He's perfect, right? Because he is how you know this show is self-aware. He is exactly how you know that the creator realizes that really all anime in general, but especially and even more so harem anime, are inherently ridiculous. So at any point throughout this, the show is never taking itself too seriously. Arisu is intentionally written to sound like a caricature of a Redditor, but in the most straightforward, dorky way possible, to the point that you kinda can't help but love his antics. And again, he's another example of how the show balances everything perfectly, because he outright states that his goals in joining the broadcasting club are twofold: to find out who Apollo is, and to help all 4 girls towards their goals. So how blunt and direct he is contrasts well with all the girls who are maybe a little nervous or unsure of how to take those bigger steps towards their goals they have in mind. So each time Arisu helps them and kind of directs them on where to go, it feels meaningful. But he also never outright rejects their romantic advances either, and doesn't play it off all blasé either, because sometimes he does get flustered or caught off guard, and clearly he has some kind of romantic feelings for Apollo and always has it in his mind that it could be any one of the 4. And by the way, the fan service is more implied fans, just the way the characters are drawn is attractive, it's never too outright or too outright erotic like some harem anime will do, a lot of harem anime will do. It's just the characters themselves are attractive, and it doesn't really play that up too much. The show just lets them be attractive, right? That's the whole point. So the fan service is just looking at the girls and all these cute, silly outfits. It never gets too crazy. So, and even beyond all that, with the actual series itself, I think the art style they went for here in the anime is perfect. And the music they wrote for Rika feels emotionally strong, but artistically like slightly immature. Like it would be a teenager writing her own songs. And by the way, Rika's voice actress's singing is amazing. Just everything about this adaptation of the manga just nails it. You know, nothing particularly mind-blowing here, but just this is immaculately built from a creative standpoint as a harem show. Like, I will sing this one's praises till the cows come home. And they are slow as hell. So I'm glad we're getting a season 2 of this. This is the harem show. Next up is Shiboyugi playing death games to put food on the table. This one was written and storyboarded like it was trying to be Jujutsu Kaisen Season 3, but with less explaining curse techniques and more vague establishing shots. I'm pretty sure episode 5 of this has a still shot that's nearly a full minute long. That's just the main character lying in bed and not moving at all. And I didn't forgive that in Days with My Stepsister, and I'm not gonna let it go here. That's dumb. Now, the show itself isn't bad at all. I'm not great with shows that leave a lot of things to your interpretation, to the viewer's interpretation, as I'd rather know for sure what's happening and how the characters are feeling at any given time. That being said, the vagueness is definitely needed for this to keep up the sense of like unease and intrigue that this one has hanging over it throughout the entire thing. But honestly, I genuinely feel too stupid or just generally inept as a reviewer to offer real worthwhile praise or criticism to this one. Like, the minimalist art style was clearly intentional, the action scenes were pretty good, the pacing was kind of bizarre but alright. Like, it gets through quite a bit of the story, but I really don't feel like I fully grasp what this one wanted to achieve. I think the last episode where Yuki is like, all the girls that died, they might be dead, but while they were alive, they were totally alive. And then she vows to avenge her mentor by winning 99 of the death games in a row, because obviously you can't lose one, because then you'll be dead. And by the way, her mentor's not actually dead, because her whole thing is like she's ghostly and nobody realizes she exists and she hasn't done much with her life or whatever. But during the death game, she feels alive or something. That's weird. I don't know, but I do think the show is good. I've talked about anime like this before, ones where a lot of stuff is up to your interpretation. There's not a whole lot of coherence even between scenes. If you're not paying attention, a lot of it would feel like utter nonsense. If you like that kind of show, you'll probably like this too. And while I do think writing this show like that feels slightly unwarranted, I don't know how else this would have worked. Because that style does work for this, to be fair. So yeah, it's good. But I say that apprehensively, because maybe it's somewhere above or below that, and I just don't understand. Also worth mentioning, this is called playing death games to put food on the table, but not once does she in fact put food on the table. She plays a lot of death games, but never puts food on her table. In fact, her actual goal of beating 99 games is completely unrelated to the fact that you get money for winning a death game. So, that's weird. Next up is the Darwin Incident. Is this the vegan agenda? But no, this is reluctantly, admittedly, this is pretty good. Very thought-provoking, if nothing else. The primary conflict in this is terrorism committed by an organization driven to extremism by the Animal Rights Matter movement born out of veganism. And naturally, since this takes place in America, not to mention Middle America, this is a lot more violent and fucked up than a lot of other anime. Who would have thunk it? Conceptually, I find this very unorthodox, uncomfortable, almost, and I think that's the point. Charlie as an idea doesn't sit right with me. But as a character, I do think he serves what this show wants to do quite well. He's the ground zero for animal rights activists to try for real change. But it's also not just black and white, because from a different perspective, he's a crazy hybrid creature with only a taut sense of empathy that could just turn into a killing machine at any time. So I do think he's meant to be at least a little uncomfortable to watch. And a lot of the idealism and activism shown in this is very deliberately not shown to be either outright good or bad. It very much depends on the individual and what they want to accomplish, right? Like Charlie's adoptive parents are a good example. They are vegan, but they don't try to force that on others. So it's good that the show itself is not obviously taking a stance one way or the other. But the plot in this is fucking wild. I won't get too into it here because it's way too much to try to talk about in the span of just a few minutes per show. But basically, it's this big fucking chessboard that the Terrorist Association for Animal Rights is manipulating via various heinous acts that usually involve people dying, with a lot of twists and turns along the way. And I mean, this shit gets fucking crazy. Now, I have mixed feelings about Lucy. Because on one hand, I think she perfectly serves her purpose of being the one to get close to Charlie and to become someone he trusts, and her genuine kindness gets through to him easily and comes across easily. And, albeit, again, begrudgingly, I understand why romance has to play a factor as well. I think she's written very well, too. But in terms of the plot, she just doesn't really do anything aside from basically be the middleman between Charlie and the general populace who don't want to interact with Charlie, and then play the damsel in distress for Charlie. It's like, yeah, her conversations with Charlie are good and they connect us, the viewers, to him better, but Charlie himself really isn't that interesting as a character either. He's really only interesting as part of the scheme that's unfolding, using him as a figurehead against his will. His only character development basically amounts to, maybe some humans aren't so bad, and then, I'm smarter and stronger than all other humans, so I will protect what I care about and make an example out of people for hurting my family, and then I want to mate with Lucy. Very compelling. Also, just crazy fucking lore drop at the end. Like, holy shit. Like, I don't want to watch another season of this, but damn. That was fucking massive drop at the end. But yeah, anyway, this is pretty good. Not something I ever want to think about again, but yeah. Again, thought-provoking. Political even. Next up is Dead Account, and I'm not gonna lie, y'all, I like this one a lot. It's got all the elements of a good battle shonen, plus I think conceptually it's pretty creative as well. A social media battle shonen sounds ridiculous, right? But I think this really makes it work. The characters are exorcists, and in the digital age, harmful ghosts can attach themselves to the social media accounts and also the cell phones linked to them of inactive users, specifically dead people. And the main character's exorcism powers are also digitized, so the powers are linked to their own cell phones, and the way the characters behave online is reflected in their powers. So the main guy, blue hair, filmed himself provoking people into fights to make money off of those videos, and people who hate watched those videos only got him more money. So he's a flame baiter, right? So he has fire powers. Our Sasuke equivalent, in this one, likes to shit talk people online. He's a basher, so he has a giant fucking hammer. And our Sakura equivalent here is completely obsessed to a creepy degree with a famous band's bassist. At least somebody likes a bassist. So she's a clingy stalker, so her powers cling on and hold enemies in place. The list goes on. It's a pretty fun idea. And to be fair, the show is not afraid to emphasize the fact that most people who obsessively use social media have questionable personalities. But in this case, it's to those characters' benefit, because how fucked up they are actually makes it easier for them to not be traumatized and, get into more fights and have no remorse for the ghost that they're exorcising. And also, those eccentric personalities come across really easily in the writing, which is solid as well. Again, just makes this more fun to watch. Although it actually does get surprisingly extreme sometimes, fair warning. There is a dude who we actually see a scene of him about to wonk his willy to people hating him online, he gets off on that. Crazy. And this even has decent world building too. There's history. We get told about exorcism as a practice and how it had to be digitized in order to fight the new wave of digital ghosts after centuries of a status quo where nothing about the practice of exorcism had to be changed. And the digitization of powers split exorcists down the middle. A lot of them resisted the change and even called it heresy. And we actually see this split come into play in some of the characters' backstories and stuff. So that's again, that's above and beyond, if you ask me. The plot itself is nothing to write home about, pretty standard shonen fare, but it's serviceable. It's got solid pacing as well, and there's a big ol' final fight that brings all the characters together after an entertaining little class versus class battle arc. Yeah, man, I really enjoyed myself with this one. Like, definitely I would recommend it if you're into battle shonen. It's just a fun time. Next up is In the Clear, Moonlit, Dusk. You know, I'm sure an anime with a similar concept to this one already exists, but I guess I've never seen one, because I really like the idea of the, like, princely girl falling for a guy who genuinely finds her attractive, which brings out the more girly side of the princely girl. I think this one works well on that front. The characters in this are generally fine, like, I'll probably forget all about them pretty soon after this, but especially the main two fall into their roles pretty easily. Like a lot of shoujo anime, their attempt at a relationship is very unique, but it's really the concept of this that I like more than anything. And I think it gives us plenty of fan service in the form of the main girl getting embarrassed and all cute in various situations with the main dude, while also keeping the character writing consistent and fairly engaging for what it is. And actually, the romance works well, given both of the main characters' personalities. Like, Yoi's never really been treated like a girl before and has no romantic experience. Meanwhile, Ichimura is, like, actually properly in love for the first time and not just fooling around with the girl. So they're, like, clumsily trying to navigate their relationship as their feelings and bond grow and change over time. It's well done and charming, you know? Again, most of the actual events that go down aren't really noteworthy or even important in and of themselves. You know, we touch on a lot of typical slice of life beats here, shopping, festivals, the works. You know the drill by now. But it is, like, decently engaging and fun to watch. I don't particularly like the involvement of the brunette handsome lad. I get why he's there, to stir up some jealousy in Ichimura and just cause some drama, but I don't know, it just felt like he didn't do enough to justify him being there in the first place. But it's not like he takes that much away from anything, and in the end, he's kind of part of what causes the main two's little spat at the end, which they make up from is the last big dramatic thing that happens in this. So it's fine, I guess. Also worth noting, I quite like the supporting characters in this, specifically the ones on Yoi's side, her little wing girls. They're super fun and cute. They don't take up too much time or space from the main romance that's going on, especially since they themselves are not involved in romances of their own, at least within these 12 episodes. So yeah, this one's a comfortable thumbs up for me as far as these little shoujo romance anime go. Like, just a cute, fun show without much, if any, overblown drama for the sake of drama or even pointless characters who don't do anything. This is just a wholesome little romance. I liked it. Next up is Journal with Witch. This one starts out with a Justin Bieber reference, so that's instantly a W. So this is one of those slice of life shows that treads carefully. And that's in the sense that just the way it delivers everything feels intentionally incomplete, and its messaging is just more implicit. It handles its characters and their feelings with care, right? It's gentle, the whole show is. From the way it looks to the framing and the messaging. It's the story of an adolescent girl whose parents died in an accident, getting taken in by her not socially inept, let's say socially eccentric aunt, who had a very strenuous relationship with the girl's late mom, her sister. And the aunt is a struggling author who's not really sure how best to deal with this girl going through her late formative years. So it's very mundane, but also very emotionally mature. So, like, for as much growth as Asa, you know, the teenage girl, goes through after losing her parents, we also see how Asa being around helps Makio, the aunt, come more into her own as an adult as well. This one touches a lot on the struggles of being someone who's different from everyone else. Someone who's not ordinary, I guess. Some of the tension between Asa's mom and aunt was because the mom felt the need to fit in with everyone else, but Makio was okay with being isolated, not chasing marriage, and being different from other ladies. And Asa herself also struggles with the idea that because her parents are gone, everyone in her school will treat her differently. There's even an angle with one of Asa's little friends where she's being pressured by her friends, like, oh, don't you want a boyfriend? But this girl actually likes girls, so she's struggling to come to terms with how it might change how people see her once they know that about her. It's all just fine, like perfectly acceptable stuff. But Asa's main arc is basically just a coming-of-age one, full of self-discovery that comes around with her desire to sing. She like adjusts to her new life with her aunt, who's a lot more like apathetic overall than her parents ever were, and Asa's just trying to figure out what to do with her life now. And meanwhile, Makio is trying to just navigate adulthood while struggling as an author, looking for inspiration, you know, interacting with the people in her life in her own unique way. It's that kind of show, you know. This one's art style and visuals are very solid as well, especially for a very mundane slice of life anime. Again, this is really not bad at all. It's not my thing, really not my thing, but it's all very well done. So this is absolutely a good show. So if this kind of mundane slice of life show is your thing, I would 100% recommend it. Next up is You Can't Be in a Rom-Com with Your Childhood Friends. This one is relentless. It never lets up. It's fan service upon fan service upon fan service. And I'm not just talking about the sexy kind either, although there is plenty of that. Even besides what's typically imagined as anime fan service, you know, the groping, wet uniforms, panty shots, all that nonsense. What I mean is just like getting all the girls into various situations where they're embarrassed or fawning over the main guy, just bringing out their cute sides, right? And even past that, this show actually takes not too much, just a little bit of time to explore the reasons why each of the four girls actually still crush on the main character even to this day, and it's all sensible stuff. You know, including backstory like that without being overdramatic or wasting too much time is going above and beyond for a show like this, you know? And I think what it does do with the development of the romance is impressive, if for no other reason than it simultaneously feels like it makes good progress and also doesn't at all. It somehow brings the characters' like hidden feelings forward without actually ending up causing too much change to the dynamic between everybody. So even if there's like a confession here or a kiss there, it still kind of feels like nothing actually changes, which I guess is par for the course in a harem show like this. I don't particularly like the ending either, but it's not bad. Like, what did I expect? You know, there really weren't too many rom-coms this season, so this is pretty much the only one I would put very squarely in the trash category of like harem rom-com, but this one does know that it's trash. And, you know, as I've said, when a show is self-aware, it's always better for it. But even then, this is still kind of a step above other trash harems, even without its decent little sense of self-aware humor. It's no Cafe Terrace, but it did try. Next up is The Invisible Man and his soon-to-be wife. This is super cozy. Like, you can immediately see the bit here and how well it works, right? Since the main girl is blind, she wouldn't be able to see the Invisible Man anyway. So they have a very cute thing going on pretty much instantaneously. Really not much to comment on here. This really falls into its rhythm super easily. Like, it does enough to change up its situations with various detective issues, trips to other places, all that jazz. Even the supporting cast and their various romantic and or demi-human related endeavors are like just fine and keep this one from getting too stale. There's good diversity in the characters, personalities, lifestyles, and demi-human races. So this one knows exactly what it wants to be right off the bat. I mean, pretty much the most dramatic shit that happens in this is the main two start dating and then go meet each other's parents. I mean, I'm pretty sure there's a kidnapping of someone's kid mixed in there somewhere, but it's not important. Actually, that's not true. The most dramatic shit that happens is the mixed race elf couple and their not cursed twins being born. That had a lot of drama, at least comparatively in this show to everything else. Also probably worth mentioning is that there are some pretty decent standout moments visually in this as well. Like, the main girl has some bocce moments, like not on that level in terms of the visuals, but same energy. But yeah, this is very sweet, very cute. If you like this kind of show, like, you know, Angel Next Door genre of anime, almost no doubt that you'll like this one as well. Next up is The Holy Grail of Eris. This is actually a fun little supernatural mystery situation here. I liked it. Now, I should mention I'm just gonna give this a free pass for not explaining the rules by which Scarlet exists as a ghost in this world, since nobody else exists as a ghost, just her. But that's not really important, right? Like, they mention a lingering attachment, and that's whatever, fine. Because the concept itself for this is pretty fun. Because the show does manage to kind of turn this whole situation from what seems like, at the start, an idea of getting revenge on whoever set up Scarlet to be executed way back when, into a pretty deep mystery involving a whole lot of characters in various roles and positions across this bureaucratic world. There are a lot of good twists and turns as this goes on, and I think it does at least a decent job of keeping us, the viewers, up to snuff with what's going on with all the players in the game at any point, and it sort of comes full circle with everything towards the end, which I like. But I think they could have done a better job with the mastermind guy. I kind of barely knew who he was. But the vibes of this being like an old-timey mystery are nice. I think it nails that. And I think the dynamic that Connie has with Scarlet throughout this is nice as well. Connie's little romance with that one guy who she gets engaged to is not bad, but not the show's best foot forward. I do think this one is probably prone to becoming a little convoluted if you're not paying attention. But other than that, this is a pretty decent offering as far as mystery shows go, like decent to pretty good, somewhere in that ballpark. And if nothing else, the vibes are on point, right? I know I shouldn't be using that as a point of praise for the show, as a very professional reviewer. And I don't know if I've even ever said that about any other show, of like the 400 others I've talked about on these videos. But it's true. The vibes of this are immaculate, so. I'm just the messenger. Okay, welcome to the fantasy Isekai block. Yay, we love this one. We love this block of shows, don't we? Yes. Next up is Jack of All Trades, Party of None. This is a marginally above average addition to the supporter kicked out of the hero's party is actually super strong genre of anime. Like, this one sets up what it's going to be in very short order and then just does its thing without doing any weird shit. This is one of those where it really stays focused and keeps everything pretty simple, and ends up being stronger overall as a result. Plus, characters have some nuance or intriguing aspects to them. There are some halfway decent character arcs even. This one's up there in pretty good territory. I think one thing I'd change, at least in how the first half of this plays out, where it sort of builds to that dragon fight, I think episode 6 is when the dragon fight happens, is the show never really tells us what the process is of creating original magic. Selma at one point, who I think is the red-haired chick, at some point she's just kind of like, well, not many people make their own magic, it's hard to do or whatever. So in the dragon fight, where our bro is just bringing original spells out of the woodwork, it simultaneously feels like a cop-out while not seeming as impressive as it could be. Like, how long does he have to dedicate to creating each original spell? Because, for all we know, he could have just had a Jimmy Neutron brain blast moment for each spell and it just poofed into existence. I could do that. That's not that impressive. So I think the dragon fight suffers a bit for that, but But this one does have a pretty good rendition of one of this anime genre's essential elements, that being the hero's party who kicked out the main character ending up looking like tools after kicking him out and being butthurt about it, right? It's quite satisfying to see them like seethe while the blue-haired chick yaps about how Orin is actually super cracked out. And Orin himself actually has a simple little arc where he wants to find a place to belong but is afraid of being betrayed again. It's super simple, easy stuff, not bad at all. Now, the second half starts to delve into stuff that you would need to read the light novels to know more about. I'm assuming this is a light novel. It could be a manga. Maybe both. The point is, it doesn't have enough time to fully explore this stuff, right? Like, they probably could have done more with Caroline's backstory as a subject of human experimentation, and, we only get a tease of this whole other church cult thing with Orin's childhood girlfriend who got jebaited into committing terrorism, but it's still not bad. Right? Because in the second half, Orin helps his new party defeat the Black Dragon, and they'd fought it once before, and they had fought the dragon once before, and one of their party members died. And it has these little scenes before that salty run back where each party member is like remembering the guy who died and stealing their resolve to face the dragon. And each one of those maybe takes 10 seconds tops for each one. But it's little stuff like that that helps put this one squarely above decent. Again, this one is simple but effective. So towards the end, it feels like it loses its focus a little bit, but I understand we gotta get in some teasing and sell those light novels. So I know how it works. Also worth mentioning, the 3D animation in this is not great, but it's not atrocious. It's on the bad side of the spectrum, but it's not unforgivably bad. The models look kind of awkward and the motion could be a little better. You know, if they were gonna do 3D anyway, I feel like they should have gone a little harder in some spots. The dragon fight comes to mind. I feel like they could have done a little more, or just generally polished it up. But yeah, this one is solid. Like, enjoyable, pretty fun, doesn't try too hard to be funny or weird. Just a rock solid fantasy show. There was a cute girl in the hero's party, so I tried confessing to her. This is cute. Not much substance here. It's pretty much a slice of life romance, but in a fantasy setting. So, you know, the slice of life includes monsters and such every so often. Genuinely not too much to offer here. This is perfectly enjoyable as like a shut your brain off, easy to watch little fantasy rom-com. The premise is pretty cute, the characters are decent, and the various pairings, even aside from the main two, are pretty cute as well. The writing's decent, and none of the little side quests that they go on take too long, so it keeps moving along at a good pace. I guess I have kind of mixed feelings about how this one does antagonists. You know, there's that one guy, he showed up in like episode 5, drove the main character Yoki to his limit in a fight, and then after that Yoki got super angry and transformed into this crazy demon form we've never seen before, and it kind of seemed like this guy that Yoki fought in episode 5 was going to be like this big villain who stuck around for the whole rest of the show, but he just got dropped into the river and never showed up again in that same episode. Even the group of like child thieves who get introduced and then like a few episodes later bring in a mud golem into town or whatever, they just get taken out with like the power of Valentine's Day. So the show doesn't really do bad guys very well. But at the same time, that's not what this one's about. It's much more about exploring the unlikely friendship blossoming into a romance between the main guy and Cecilia, along with other pairings of varying likelinesses. And I do think the way that the main two get closer to each other as this one goes on is charming and cute. And that's really all this one needed to get right. The monsters and magic and side questing are just the icing on that cake. Because, you know, whatever the adventures they go on actually are, just them going on them together would strengthen their relationship, right? Oh, and one other thing probably worth mentioning is the main character just randomly drops that he was isekai'd here and reincarnated as this demon guy that he is now, and then that never gets expanded on. It's more like a way to convince Cecilia that he's not actually bad instead of an actually meaningful element of the story. So that's weird, but again, not what this one's about. Also, on another note, it's kind of refreshing that the main character is just unashamedly chuny. Like, not ironically either. Like, he's just a good old classic chuny bro. Like, seeing that in the year of our Lord 2026 is, like, surprisingly palate cleansing. So yeah, nothing crazy here, but a very easy watch for sure. Like, definitely recommend if you're looking for a cozy fantasy to binge on a quiet day. Next up is Roll Over and Die. Is this the lesbian agenda? Alright. This is a maybe slightly darker and more gruesome than average offering of a fallen from grace main character with a bizarre unique ability that eventually finds happiness among friends in spite of all the horrific shit going around her genre fantasy anime. But I do think it's good, and actually I quite like the colorful, quirky cast of friends that Flum keeps around, and actually the small moments of mundane happiness that the show gives us every so often, they actually do make everything feel worth it. Really, once Flum gets that cracked out cursed sword in episode 1, she's pretty much plateaued in terms of her growth as like a fighter, but her basically becoming like the breadwinner of her household and having Milkit along with her to give her a reason to keep fighting is what drives her character growth. Although she really just goes from kind of wishing she was dead to wanting to make Milkit happy, and that's about as far as that goes. Which is fine, but it's not like a consistent growth thing. It's not like it's more like a and then it plateaus. It just happens and that's it. But she is built double tough, right? Her cursed sword like heals her and is able to regenerate her body since she just has that inverse ability or whatever. So she's out here like cutting off her own arm when it gets a parasite or drinking poison just to have her body regenerate itself. So you really see her determination whenever she does get into a fight with monsters or buff dudes or what have you. So it's easy to root for her as a main character, so I do like her. But yeah, nothing much notable about the other characters. The world building is kind of interesting here and there though, like the supposedly squeaky clean church of this world has like a very dark side that gets covered up, and you know that's like a history of human experimentation and shit, and there are demons in this world that the heroes party, which Flem was kicked out of, they're trying to kill, but when the demons do show up, they're mostly friendly and they don't kill humans outright. So there are some kind of intriguing elements here, but again, it's all mostly stuff you'd have to read the light novels to get the full truth on. Probably. Y'all know how this light novel adaptation shit works by now. The plot of this is a bit disjointed, but a lot of like the conflict revolves around this dude who's like super up his own ass at the Adventurers Guild and like the evil church of origin or whatever it is. And also these crazy black hole spiral core thingies that I think the church made. Not sure about that. It's not like super compelling by any means, but it does the job well enough. You know, like you could get invested in this. Again, if nothing else, it is intriguing. I think this one probably needed like a singular antagonist figure instead of like the idea of an antagonist to kind of bring this one together. But yeah, this one's not bad at all. It does get pretty gruesome though. You've been warned. Next up is Noble Reincarnation. Born blessed, so I'll obtain ultimate power. This one absolutely does not fuck around. No dilly-dallying, no frolicking. This bro absolutely locks the fuck in. Again, not much to report here. This is like solid, actually. And you all know, I generally, mostly, all the time, prefer to my anime to include a lot of nonsense, right? I like silliness, but this one actually like wholly dedicates itself to just being no nonsense, and that actually works to this one's benefit because it commits. This show's characters are generally unremarkable. Most of them are just there to serve the main character, look pretty, or be enemy fodder for the main character, or a combination of multiple of those. So at the end of the day, this is really just the story of the main character, reincarnated as the 13th prince of this kingdom, being frighteningly competent and clever, like outsmarting all of his opponents, assembling a squad of unmatched talent, becoming super overpowered himself, and just schooling anyone who goes against him. like completely and utterly schooling them, like to the point it's not even funny. The main character is super serious and goes about his business with no bullshit. And again, the plot it's a little disconnected. Not a lot of the things that actually happen are directly connected to each other. But I do think that everything that does happen, like none of it's bad, and it does feel like it keeps everything moving. None of it feels too dragged out or anything like that. And then at the end, there's just this big, like, almost insurrection that just ends the same way every other conflict ends, with the main character stomping it out. But like the scheming behind the scenes of this, it does run surprisingly deep. There is a lot going on. So yeah, like, you know, lots of pretty girls around here. Pacing is pretty good. Just a good offering of like this specific genre of isekai where the main character leads a bunch of people who become super dedicated to him for his competence. Nothing to sneeze at, for sure. If you like your anime more serious, this one. It'd be over here, this one. Next up is Kunon the Sorcerer Can See. This is another like slice of life, but in a fantasy setting. This one's decent as well. It's consistent throughout and has a fun little cast of quirky characters. This is pretty much just the lighthearted story of a blind boy who discovers magic and its endless possibilities, falls in love with the practice of magic, and by working on his magic, learns of the world around him and comes of age in the process. Again, Not really much to offer here on my end. If you like easygoing fantasy anime, you'll probably enjoy this one. The writing's fun, with a decent sense of humor, some running gags. It never feels too slow, despite being pretty mundane for a fantasy show, and it actually cycles new and old characters in and out as Kunon does more things across the land, which keeps it feeling fresh as it goes on. Probably the most interesting thing about this plot-wise is what goes down around the middle. Kunon's whole thing is that he's trying to use his water magic to create working eyeballs for himself. And around the middle of this, he actually succeeds, but not perfect. So he's seeing his fiancée for the first time, but she has a feather sticking out of her head. His dad is a Final Fantasy monster, and there's a giant crab walking behind him at all times. There's really no other big milestones like that in this, but it's stuff like that that creates a sense of progress that makes it feel like the show is worth watching while still keeping at least a little intrigue up for future episodes. Although Kunon never actually fixes that problem within the span of these episodes. But other than that, the plot is pretty unnoteworthy. Some typical handsome young boy woos over tons of girl shenanigans, magic school, magic teachers, yada yada. But yeah, for what this was, I enjoyed it. Not bad at all. Next up is Isekai Office Worker. The Otherworld's books depend on the bean counter. Is this the gauge? Alright, I'm done. But for real, a gay isekai might be a first for me. Imagine telling the original thought leaders that brought isekai anime to the forefront of the anime world with their never-ending harems of 11 out of 10s that crush on the main character for no reason at all, that their anime formula would eventually be a medium for man-on-man action. Actually, they probably wouldn't care. But this is decent, I like the concept as well. Although it's not like it's the first time we've seen an isekai where the main character is basically just an accidental +1 and ends up with a lame job in a fantasy world. But as for the main character's role in this world and how he can affect everything, it's all sensible and works fairly well to help stir up drama and stuff. The world building's okay too. I like how the main character helps break the status quo by intellectually challenging everything that the residents of this fantasy world know, using their own rules. Also, how the main character is seemingly cold, but his rationality helps the Saintess girl, the one who was intended to be isekai'd, realize what a precarious situation she may or may not be in, and she starts to depend on him more as it goes on. And then that causes strife with the prince. That didn't really need to be there, but yeah, it's a decent isekai. Ironically, the romance here feels kind of like a romance out of a shoujo anime, or perhaps that's not ironic at all. But it's not bad, maybe just a little contrived, because their displays of affection are excused by the commander guy helping the main character with his lack of magic aptitude, upon coming to the isekai. He's getting slowly poisoned by the magic particles in the air or whatever, and he's helping him cleanse those from within his system by transferring magic using direct contact. But it is nice to just see a show present a gay relationship like this, and it just is. There are still het relationships in this, but the main two are just gay and everyone around him thinks it's cute. So I like that about this one. This is a decent isekai offering. Little mundane, pretty slow, but not bad for what it is. Next up is Hell Mode. The hardcore gamer dominates in another world with garbage balancing. I actually like this one a good bit. There's a lot to it, but not too much that it ever even approaches being overwhelming. Pretty standard isekai fare in terms of the concept and the setting and all that, but it's decent. This one just takes a pretty lighthearted approach to everything. You can just tell that whoever's writing the story and dialogue are just enjoying themselves. And I think it comes across pretty clearly. Although I do think they could have done more with some characters. The pink-haired girl, it's the main guy's childhood friend or whatever. She's revealed to have the ultimate sword master talent or whatever, and then after that she just does pretty much nothing. So that just felt kind of pointless to even bring up in the first place. But about halfway through, there's a big change in scenery for the main character and a swapping out of recurring characters that helps keep this one feeling fresh. But even after that, the main thing that the protagonist does, hunting monsters using his summons to help him gain experience and level up, stays the same even after that. And the Ojo-sama girl, the purple-haired girl, kind of starts out seeming obnoxious, but pretty naturally comes to, have a fondness for the protagonist without much drama at all. And the final conflict, where he saves her from their kidnapping situation and that climactic fight, is pretty satisfying as well for what it is. Although, again, I think we could have done more with purple hair in this. I'm sure she does more in the light novels or whatever, because there is a pretty big turning point for her in the latter half of this. So this show is comfortably in pretty good territory, although the 3D in this is pretty trash. The creatures look like they came right off the PS2. And I tell you what, I love the PS2. That's my childhood right there, but it is 2026. We gotta move past that. But yeah, again, other than that, pretty good. This main character is the guy Rudius wishes he was. Just a tried and true hardcore gamer and not a pedophile. That's a thumbs up from me, Chief. Next up is Easygoing Territory Defense by the Optimistic Lord. Production magic turns a nameless village into the strongest fortified city. This is decent. Again, pretty standard fare as far as like city building isekai go, but it's got a good sense of humor, a good variety of colorful characters, a main character with a pretty useful non-combat type of magic, some pretty ladies scattered about, pretty much all the pieces it needs to create the experience that this kind of anime wants to deliver. And this one's pretty lighthearted as far as the conflict that goes down, and there really aren't too many like actually noteworthy characters on the account of most of this anime's time being dedicated to the main boy doing unbelievable things and having unbelievable things happen to him. I mean, pretty much as bad as it gets until the very end is like a dragon that shows up at the village but causes 0 casualties. But then at the end, there's the invasion angle, but even then, no one from their village actually dies in that invasion angle. So really the biggest character arc in this is Arte. Whatever. The main boy's arranged fiance, right? She goes from this like very timid girl with no self-confidence to being able to use her marionette magic, which her parents loathed her for having despite her having no choice in the matter, to save her hometown from that last invasion like single-handedly. Like her marionette just wrecks shop. She's definitely the one character in this who has by far the most amount of growth from start to finish. And it's not a bad arc, really. Like, it does feel like she earns it. This show's not bad at all. It's an easy watch, especially if you're into these like city building types of isekai. Next up is Reincarnated as a Dragon Hatchling. This is pretty much start to finish a completely standard, unremarkable isekai. Like, not bad, but pretty much the same vibe as like 8 billion other isekai anime. This one spends a lot of time with the main character, our reincarnated dragon guy, monologuing to himself as he experiences life in this new isekai world and levels up his stats and unlocks new overpowered abilities. Except this time, he's a dragon. Ooh. It does have a decent little arc with the brunette girl, Miria, where she gets saved by the dragon guy early on, and then after he goes through some like Pokemon evolution type shit, she meets him again and they become friends since she understands that he wants to help everyone despite being a very evil looking dragon. But then when Miria's village is attacked by like an actual dragon, who's a dragon and not a person on the inside, and our dragon boy is driven to drastic measures, Miria still believes in him after that, despite all signs pointing to our dragon boy being super evil and nasty. Again, nothing we haven't seen before, but it's not bad by any means. This whole show is maybe a little slowly paced, if anything, since the main character spends so long monologuing. But there's some introspection mixed in there too, somewhere. So, it's not all bad. There is even a mastermind, use that word lightly, mastermind figure in this who fights the main character in a big climactic fight at the end. And also, for what it's worth, the 3D in this is inoffensive as well. This one also has a small cast of like weird, colorful characters that don't really do much of anything, but I mean, this is completely serviceable. Like, I mean, it did manage to get me at least a little attached to like this small poisonous lizard creature. So, it can't be that bad. Although this does leave off on a weird cliffhanger, but I did not enjoy this. It's fine. Next up is the Villainess is adored by the prince of the neighbor kingdom. yeah, this is pretty much just shoujo isekai villainous slop, but I actually think the romance isn't that bad. It is cute, if nothing else. But a lot of what the main characters deal with is the most paint-by-numbers villainous stuff, like, oh no, here comes the heroine with her special powers, my new fiancé is gonna end up choosing her instead of me. And then, I'll never choose anyone but you. Will you spend the rest of your life with me? And then they make out for 45 seconds. Also, our main character, villainous girl, like, overreacting and running away when even, like, a hint of something that she remembers from the Otome game in her previous life, which this isekai world is based on, starts playing out in front of her because she thinks that handsome love interest boy will leave her and shit. You know, the same thing I just made a bit about. That's pretty much the extent of the drama, though. And the stuff with the fairy kings and all that, and like the drama, the sequel's heroine, the blue hair chick, it's all not bad, but it's very like overblown shoujo drama, right? Drama for the sake of drama. But I do think the outcome on the other end is good, like where the main character is able to make friends with everyone, including that like ocean spirit fairy queen lady who hated her at first, and also the sequel, the sequel heroine, the blue hair chick. And just generally, I think the main girl, Tiara, is that her name, Tiara? Is a very good leading lady. She's very earnest and dedicated to her man. She loves to make and eat sweets. Making a likable main character isn't rocket science. I just think she's super easy to root for. But it's really not bad. It's just plain, which, you know, arguably could be less entertaining than being outright bad. But I do genuinely think that if this kind of show is what you're drawn to in anime, you'll enjoy this one just as much as like any other show of this genre. There's nothing particularly noteworthy about the plot, but I do think it moves along at a decent pace. It's decent overall as well. Next is An Adventurer's Daily Grind at age 29. It rhymes, so it must be true. This is like decent fun for what it is. I'm not the biggest fan of these meandering fantasy shows that don't really offer much of substance, but there's definitely a place for them. And I think this is a good offering for a show of this genre. It's got silly characters and a good sense of humor. And really the story of this is Rirui, the little blonde girl. She's just this little girl that the main guy finds lost in a dungeon somewhere, and she just sticks to him like glue for the rest of the show. And by the end, this little village they're in is her place to belong, despite all the troubles that she inadvertently brought there near the end. Not a novel character arc by any means, but not bad at all. And as for our main guy, our age 29 fella, he's the classic, like, ugh, I wish I didn't have to take in this kid so I could go to brothels and shit, guy that ends up coming to cherish his new daughter and the time he spends with her as if he were her actual dad. Again, not new, but perfectly fine. And actually, there's some halfway decent stuff with some of the other characters as well. Veronica comes to mind. She actually has at least a little bit of character depth. Actually, I think it's really just her. But, you know, this one having a good sense of humor takes it a long way. Like, that's what makes this one a decent watch. Like, I usually don't like meandering fantasy shows too much, and I really still don't with this one, but I did enjoy myself watching this, and that's all I can really ask for. Next up is Champignon Witch. This one's heart is in the right place. Unfortunately, that's about all it's got going for it. This one is pretty much just nonsensical in its story progression. It also sometimes falls into weird contradictions. I really don't know how to put into words how weird it feels just watching this one. I guess it feels like things happen for the convenience of the plot rather than feeling like it's earned anything. Like, the whole thing is our lonely black witch main character girl is trying to raise this young boy to become a magic user capable of overcoming this like seemingly certain fate of becoming this like all-encompassing ball of disaster. But through raising the kid, she's like supposed to discover all the feelings her life of solitude was missing, right? But it doesn't really feel like that bliss she's supposed to be feeling is really there. I mean, there's literally a few points throughout this where we hear some like third party's inner monologue that just goes, "Young man, the joy on your face right now will be what helps you overcome your fate." Like, it has to be told to us outright. You know, like that's a little tough to swallow. So I guess this just feels like it's jerking us all over the place for pretty much no reward. It never really locks on to what it wants to focus on thematically. I really wish I could convey this better, but I really just don't understand this one at all. I just don't have a solid understanding of really anything. The characters, the setting, you name it. I don't even really understand what will or won't turn Lise, the kid, into the big ball of disaster. Like what the tangible goal is that he needs to reach to avoid becoming the big ball of disaster, which makes the story not really hit very hard or just feel like it's just there rather than being a narrative worth investing in. That being said, I do think Luna, the main character, the Black Witch herself, as a character, is like at least kinda interesting, at least conceptually. Like I see what they wanted her to be, right? This like perpetual loner type who longs for romance and connection. At least for the most part, I can kind of understand her. But every other character just feels like they're being given emotions by some like omniscient being, which the emotions then drive them to do things to service the bizarre plot. And even at the end, when the witch council magician finally shows up after being missing for the whole show, it doesn't really end up feeling that important, because each episode as you go through this just feels weirdly disjointed and disconnected from the others. So this one's tough to recommend. Stylistically, for the visuals, I think it's pretty good. And I want to like Luna, but it just doesn't bring everything together well at all. A Misanthrope teaches a class for Demi-Humans. This one's actually solid. This is a pretty standard situation of a traumatized main character becoming a leader for younger folks who like helps them confront their deepest feelings and then has to confront his own deepest feelings along the way. But I actually think this has a good amount to offer for what it is. It actually sees some of his students graduate and then new ones come in within these 13 episodes. It could have just wasted its whole runtime on like gimmicky, unfunny comedy stuff that just plays off like their demi-human quirks or whatever. But it's almost entirely, at least like halfway decent, character work and slice of life beats with some pretty good emotion mixed in there too. And actually the main character's trauma, it seems like something I'd normally write off as him not being assured enough in himself. But as we learn near the end of this, he had basically the whole system working against him when he tried to help that girl in her bullying situation in his previous school that ended up making him never want to talk to people ever again. Like even if he's well aware that he did the right thing and assured of himself for doing the right thing, it doesn't matter because that girl's bully has a rich family with a lot of influence in the school's decision making. I think anyone would be discouraged after doing the right thing and then getting fired for it, you know? And plus that girl that he was trying to help just said that he ruined her life even though he thought he was helping. And even though she was lying about that. So yeah, I think I'd probably hide away in my room and play video games for a few years too, if that happened to me. I think the angle of our teacher man and that girl who he tried to help, now grown up and becoming his assistant teacher, making up after everything that happened left a little something to be desired from an emotional standpoint, but I guess really like he's employed now again and she doesn't really hate him. That was a lie, so I guess it's all fine. You know, no harm, no foul. He has a job. Incredible. But yeah, like I said, this is not bad at all. Like, characters are quirky and silly, but not too much so. There's even like some interesting twists with some of the students, and the graduations at least kind of feel meaningful when they happen. Yeah, this is solid for what it is. Next up is Kaya-chan Isn't Scary. There's more to this than I expected going in, and it's kind of freaky. Now, conceptually, I think this is decent. A little girl who can see ghosts and easily snuffs out any of their attempts at poltergeisting while struggling to connect with their peers. That's fine in and of itself, right? But I do find some of the ghostiness to be a little inconsistent, like Miss Chie sensei. The show never really makes clear to what extent she can see the ghosts that Kaya's beating up. So we don't really know what the rules are. And maybe that's intentional. But other than that, I think Chie plays her role as like the earnest and caring teacher who like kind of just stumbled into this fucked up situation. She plays that role well. She actually has 2 good moments in the second half of this that really demonstrate her character and solidify her role in this. And Kaya's character arc is, in fact, supposed to be about her slowly beginning to connect with her classmates and stuff, and the show tells us that that's happening, but it doesn't really feel like there's much of a sense of consistent progression on that front. There are just like various incidents where Kaya helps one of her classmates that don't really feel connected to each other. It's just like her slowly becoming a little more integrated and less shunned, but we don't even really feel that happening. But actually, when it does dive into its actual plot, I think it's just the right amount of deep, but not too involved and kind of fucked up, right? Like this could have gotten away with just being episodic nonsense, and some of it is that. But I actually appreciate that it created this like whole backstory with the Ebisamori family that gets pretty diabolical. And what we learn also explains the questions the show had left vague until then about Kaya's mom and what's really going on with her. And I think the mom's motivations might be a little wishy-washy, all things considered, but they do make sense, especially since she discovered the journal of her aunt that she really loved or whatever. So this exceeded my expectations. Like, it's a self-contained little psychological horror show. It has an ending. That's good. So yeah. This was like surprisingly pretty good. Like not super good, but it is good for sure. In good territory. Next up is Dark Moon, the Blood Altar. It is somehow incredible that this is just Twilight, but as a reverse harem shoujo anime. I mean, I've only ever seen the first Twilight movie, and I didn't get through the whole thing. So I don't even know if I should count that, but the similarities are shocking. Vampires and werewolves just perpetually at each other's throats in a school setting where the main character is somehow able to make every last one of them immediately fall in love with her and just basically tame them all within the first few episodes. Like literally all 9 or 10 or whatever of the dudes in this are basically in love with the main girl from episode 3 or 4 onwards. All that is to say, the writing in this is pretty nonsensical. Now, I haven't really dipped my toes too far into the world of manhwa specifically, but I do believe there are quite a few manhwa out there kind of like this that just go all in on more of a fan servicey direction and disregard a more compelling narrative and consistent character writing, and that's fine. Right, like I get it. It's part of the reason why stuff like Twilight was and is successful. But I'm not a fucking liar, alright? This was bizarre. Around the halfway point of this, Suha, the main character, learns that the main 6 guys are secretly vampires, and they'd been hiding that fact from her. And she'd spent the whole first half of this shouting from the rooftops about how she despises vampires more than anything, because a vampire, back when she was a kid, killed like her only friend, right? Apparently no one but him wanted to be friends with her because she was super strong, and people accused her of being a vampire because she had that special ability, whatever. But then after she learned that her 6 new guy friends are vampires, she has like a very short outburst and then gets saved by like the primary love interest guy. And then Suha just goes back on that immediately and even offers to let the main primary love interest take her blood. Like she says, like, I do hate vampires, but not you guys. You're different. You've never done anything to hurt me. And it just makes the whole angle of her hating vampires feel kind of pointless. Like her getting over it after some time to digest everything. That makes perfect sense. But immediately? Like literally immediately. And the way the plot unfolds in the first half, it feels slow, yet somehow none of the important stuff actually lands. Because we learn little by little that there's some kind of scheme going on behind the scenes of this academy they're at, especially when we see the guy who's Suha's friend that got killed by vampires when they were kids. He's alive for some reason, so we know something fucky's going on, but even that's like only in between weird, kind of uncomfortable scenes of the dudes simping for her a bunch despite only having known her for like 3 hours. And then in the second half, when the plot, the real plot starts going down, it's revealed that the 6 main guys, who we learned were vampires, basically got done to them what happened to the Dragon Slayers in Fairy Tail. Fairy Tail spoilers, I guess, for anyone who hasn't seen it and wants to watch it. Where they were actually time warped. These 6 guys were time warped from like centuries in the past by the princess that they were sworn to protect, so that in the future they could take care of this evil vampire guy that they were facing. But that makes even less sense here, because the princess who sends them to the future does it pretty much out of nowhere. I would assume it would be her last resort, but it's more like her second resort in this case, because they were on the back foot in a fight against that vampire guy that had gone on for like a whole 60 seconds. And also apparently the princess just has that power, possibly because she's blessed by some god figure who's important because reasons that we never heard of before. Not sure what that god's role is in the origin of anything. And then the princess's soul is revealed to have reincarnated into Suha or whatever, and that would be why the vampire guys who fell in love with her instantly felt so drawn to her. I mean, classic shoujo, like it was destiny type bullshit. I don't mind that idea in and of itself, but seeing the backstory play out the way it did, it just didn't make that much sense. So then after Suha gets herself kidnapped in the middle of their Quidditch game or whatever, so unfolds an equally nonsensical rescue arc filled with meaningless fights and trials and tribulations, and then culminates with the most paint-by-numbers, power of love, emotionally hollow bullshit climax. Even the motivations of the antagonist are just because he wanted the princess to love him. Incredible. So yeah, this was strange. I wouldn't call it outright bad, but it is very weird, with a nonsensical and empty narrative. I'd pass this one over if I had a second chance at life. Okay! Cosmic Princess Kaguya. I don't know, man. I think it's about the right time in human history for a postmodern reimagining of the old Princess Kaguya story. Enough super different from ancient times to the point that those poor fellows could never begin to comprehend the shit that we have in the world now. So I like the concept, I guess, although it does hardly resemble the source material. I wanted to talk about this since it turned out to be pretty popular. The visuals in this are super fun and stylized and just generally really fucking good. The little capture the flag game they play around the middle of this and the climactic fight scene in particular are very fun and engaging to watch. Even the mundane or more emotional scenes were really well storyboarded and drawn as well. Just a lot of details and like little movements and such that convey the emotions. The facial expressions too in this, well, they're certainly expressive. The story is cute, nothing particularly compelling, but it is fundamentally sound, right? In fact, I would say the best thing about the story is that it doesn't try to reinvent the wheel. It's one of those situations where the story is structured and paced in a very basic way, fundamentally sound in a way that always works well, but a lot of things about like the setting and what you actually see is kind of novel, which makes up for how predictable it might seem. It's the building blocks thing, right? The building blocks thing are a little more novel, and that helps it stand out. Iroha, the main girl, is a great example because she is simultaneously the least interesting yet the most compelling character in this movie, because you can kind of predict her entire arc from like 5 minutes in. Like, from that angle at the very beginning that she's gonna start off kind of cold, kind of tsum, and then she'll warm up, and when the runaway girl eventually has to go home, her true feelings will come bubbling up to the surface, and she'll say she wants to stay together forever. Again, extremely basic, but the movie handles Iroha so well as a character. So even though it's an angle we've seen a billion times, it still works. Like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And she doesn't have a lot of competition for most compelling character in the movie, but still, the point stands. I don't particularly like the big final reveal angle. I think I would have preferred a fuck you, everybody's happy ending, even if it had to throw out any sense of logic. And really it did throw out any sense of logic for a kind of convoluted ending that I don't really think contributed anything at all. Also, I don't really know why we even went through Kaguya's little baby arc in the first place. That also didn't need to be there, in my opinion. But the friendship between Iroha and Kaguya is really well written and developed, so I did feel my jaded emotions stir a bit with all that Iroha went through toward the end. But yeah, this was enjoyable overall. Love the music, love the bright and colorful visuals. Overall, I think a surprisingly ambitious project for a Netflix original that I think was worth the investment. Like, definitely a good watch if you're bored on like a Sunday night or something. Next up is Tojima Wants to Be a Kamen Rider. This show is really something. This is so far down the stupid spectrum, like way over here, that you'd think I'd be all over this. And I do like it, don't get me wrong. It has absolutely no shame, and it plays into its sense of stupidity perfectly. And I was laughing pretty regularly, but I don't know, I guess it didn't connect with me the way I was hoping it would. I think the reason I don't see this in the same light as like the Red Ranger Isekai from last year is that this is just a relentless onslaught of stupidity. In a good way mostly, but it just doesn't really offer a lot of breathing room from that dumbness. There's no straight man here to counterbalance the clowns, it's all clowns. And even the one character closest to being a straight man in all this, the sister girl who runs the bar or whatever, she eventually joins the charade. And again, I do think it's funny. The ridiculousness speaks for itself. I mean, it's a bunch of freaks whose obsessions with Kamen Rider characters motivated them for years, only to eventually find out that there are actually supernatural enemies like the ones from Kamen Rider shows in real life, so they band together against that threat. And like, they actually have fairly compelling backstories that actually do explain away their motivations for physically training themselves and continuing to strive for a goal that, by all accounts, they'd never reach. And it's so over the top and silly. So like I said, I do think they hit the notes they're aiming for, right? It all lands like it should, and there's even a group of sort of side characters who have their own silly little story arc too. And the plot kind of throws you for funny, compelling twists and turns, so there's enough to get you invested in the story despite how silly the concept is. So it's got all the fundamentals down, and even goes the extra mile with how the visuals and voice acting just go way over the top. And I think the main squad works well together in their dynamic and how they're written despite how much of a motley crew they are. And the last arc too is like proper fun with a good little arc where the main squad suffers defeat and comes back after training and shit with like a nice build and an intense climax. It's good stuff. But I don't know, man. It never elevated itself to the point where I was like super invested in what was happening. Because they did have like an Eni's Lobby moment near the end where all the main squad is about to crash this big idol show at the Tokyo Dome because the group who's performing is like the cover for the bad guy's plan to turn all of society into shockers or whatever. It's weird. But I didn't really get that Eni's Lobby feeling here. I don't know if I can nail down why. I mean, it could very well be down to the fact that I watch 40 shows every anime season. That said, like I mentioned, this is a good adaptation. The visuals aren't the most incredible thing, but they're not bad at all. The action scenes are pretty engaging. Plus, it is absolutely worth shouting out the music. For this one, it totally nails it and then some. The music just really drives home the silly, over-the-top vibes this one's going for. It's such a massive boon to this one. So if you do like your anime silly and over-the-top, this is worth a watch, I would say. Although there is this weird adult version of Yuna Arkami in this show, who for some reason just goes around punching dudes and making ramen. So that's pretty cool, I guess. Next up is Gnosia. So this is just Among Us. Like, not even a joke, it's Among Us. Now that's not entirely fair, considering I do watch 40 anime a season. My research never goes beyond what's on Mal. which says that this is a video game adaptation. I'm assuming it's a visual novel. And video game adaptations are almost never going to be better than the game. Obviously, stories that were meant to be experienced firsthand by engaging with them in the form of a game just won't be the same experienced through an anime. So that's not a fully fair criticism either. But my point is that because I've only experienced this story and these characters through the comparatively limited context provided by the anime, my criticisms of the anime may not be applicable to the game. And if you really feel like getting into this, and you like visual novels anyway, you should probably just go for that straight away. Anyway, I do think this anime is decent. The intrigue is definitely there, like all throughout, and thankfully, the distribution of important information about the main character's situation and what they're experiencing is pretty even throughout this. There is a pretty big reveal moment towards the end, but I don't think it actually amounts to much in the grand scheme of things, or even in the context it was presented, because it was made out to be this crazy world-shattering thing, but it ends up getting resolved pretty underwhelmingly. But the werewolf, Among Us, whatever, logic used by the characters throughout this is sound, maybe a bit convoluted, so there's no real holes there. And I do think the individual mysteries of who's infected and who's not, as the main character Yuri gets to know all the various characters, is fairly engaging. And I actually do like how little things about the characters get changed in the different timelines, so that's nice attention to detail. The characters themselves are okay, again, probably more endearing in the visual novel. Most of them do have like some amount of backstory motivations behind them, which is all good, but not a lot of it really feels like it comes into play because most of them don't really have character arcs. It's kind of a problem when you have a parallel timeline situation going on. I think the main problem with the anime specifically is that I don't think it dedicated quite enough time to the characters in the main part of the story. There was plenty of time for mystery solving and the like, but when it came time for Yuri to be like, I want a world where everyone can be happy because I love everyone, it didn't really feel like all that emotional. Again, in the visual novel, you'd probably feel way more attached to these weirdos, but I didn't get that here. And frankly, I think any piece of media that plays with time paradoxes and parallel timelines is playing with fire. But I get what this one wanted to do, right? And I think it played with the time-space bullshit pretty well, all things considered. Even the stuff at the very end with bringing everything with, what's-her-face, Ikumi Hasegawa, full circle did kinda make sense, even if it kind of pulled the SQ Manon Kuroshka shit out of left field. But also I think this one, just as an idea, it ceilings itself conceptually. Like, it does build on itself by adding more characters as it goes on to involve in the mystery, but it also never evolves beyond the Among Us meetings and Yuri solving the mystery behind the silver keys and his own existence. The Gnosia infection itself is just there to serve the plot, really, which I think is lame. Also, the show basically pulled some Persona Final Boss BS to explain away the stuff that was otherwise inconvenient. So yeah, this is alright, decent, pretty good, somewhere in that ballpark. I guess it depends on what you're looking for in the anime experience. And if we are going in that direction, if you happen to be someone who's looking for fan service out of your anime, I would recommend the first episode and then stopping. Okay, now moving on to sequels. The last two were 2 cores, by the way. Now we're in 2 cores and sequels. Eventually it'll be just 1 core sequels. But for now, 2 core sequels, and this is a kind of triumphant return. Blue Orchestra, Season 2. Weird to have this one back, of all things. I mean, it's really not bad at all, but I'm just surprised that this one got so much investment behind it. Two core seasons. Now, again, I have a slight bias towards this idea because I was an orchestra kid in school. I was a violinist. But this very much falls into the sound euphonium genre, where all the characters that we actually take time to explore have various personal circumstances and reasons for dedicating themselves to their music club, but their shared goal of getting gold is what always unites everybody. And I do think a lot of the circumstances that we see with these various characters are emotionally compelling and easily let you empathize with what they're going through. Even besides the sweetheart girl with the green hair, I forgot her name, and Sayaki, the white-haired kid who we learn a little more about in this season, there are a few other characters who I didn't even recognize coming back into this season who were made into pretty compelling characters this way, so fair play. The pacing for this season I find pretty nice as well, because the first and last thirds of this are like high drama, And the second third, in the middle, it dips in terms of character drama, but ups the romantic tension in a way that isn't obnoxious at all, might I add. Like, the first part with the big competition is pretty straightforward, but the last part with the super strict conductor guy is actually the best part of this season, I think. Very high drama. And anyone who has played in band or orchestra, what have you, knows that, especially when you're a stupid hormonal teenager, the conductor leading everything is the main factor that determines your good or bad experience in playing in a group. And conductors come in all shades, right? So exploring the contention between the kids and the super strict conductor dude seeking total perfection is a fairly gripping little story arc. And even besides that, I think pretty much every story beat does get across the emotions it's going for pretty easily. Definitely very sound euphonium of this one for that. And as an anime project, I really respect what this one does a lot. Like, the way the characters playing sounds really does reflect the emotions the show wants to get across, and a lot of times you can really tell that their playing isn't perfect and there's some rough edges to it, which is really impressive because it's probably professional players being told to fuck it up only slightly. And even the big performances don't get shortened at all. They'll just casually take up half an episode, which again I think helps you get engrossed and invested in what these characters have poured their hearts into. Although I do think that while the 3D animation itself is expressive and probably mocapped, the 3D models themselves are just a bit too stiff looking and stand out awkwardly from the 2D drawings. But yeah, other than that, good stuff. If you're a sound euphonium guy, Payon guy, that kind of thing, you'll probably like this one. Next up is To Your Eternity Season 3. Once again, I don't know what to make of this show. Look, I'm sure I said it when I reviewed season 2 of this, but man, this is way over my pay grade. I get that it's trying to push a variety of like existential messages, like eternity isn't all it's cracked up to be and nothing should last forever, among other things, but I don't really like the way that it does all that. At least personally. Obviously, I don't believe that this show is bad. It just doesn't resonate with me on really any level, so I struggle to truly sing its praises the way it probably deserves. You'd have to go to another reviewer for that. That being said, I do like how each season thus far has kind of evolved. It's like different stages of history, right? Especially with this season now taking place in this universe's version of the modern day. And Fushi being this weird, awkward creature, still unsure of how to deal with the fact that he's immortal, just wishing everyone could be happy and immortal like him, so they could be happy forever and he never have to lose anyone. As he just keeps stumbling into all kinds of trouble, does make for decent television, right? And the series has always been strange, and this season continues to offer its signature unabashed weirdness with a lot of the new characters and interpersonal issues that arise because of them knowing Fushi. And I actually think the evolution of the knockers problem, where they've become like a parasite that can just take over a dead human's body and continue on with their life as if nothing happened, is genuinely unnerving and pretty compelling, especially in this modern setting. I swear I haven't felt a chill in a very long time like the one I felt when I saw that little purple hair girl fall from the roof and immediately come back to life all creepy and shit. My god. And as it goes on, Fushi struggles more and more with the idea of coexisting with the knockers. And I do think as it gets into the later middle parts, like the climax of this season, it does get pretty good. The cult stuff I actually think is pretty interesting, and the way characters who seemed like they were just filling space play into that little story arc took me by surprise in a good way. And the fight scene towards the end between Fushi and Mizuha's knocker was pretty good too. But it is also worth mentioning that I think the way they handled Fushi's character for this specific arc was just kinda awkward. Him arriving at his eventual decision to seek coexistence with the knockers despite them still potentially having it out for him didn't really feel earned. Apparently, the part where he laid eggs as a sea turtle was the turning point. I hesitate to say I get it, but I sort of get it from a storytelling perspective because, now he understands that life only has value because it ends, and he's choosing to see knockers as fellow life forms without only limiting himself to the idea that they must be eliminated. So he's growing. I understand that. I just didn't really like the pacing of the story. It felt really back heavy, and he just makes that decision on a dime, and the entire direction of the story changes after that. Besides that, I don't really understand Mizuha's role. outside of her being a descendant of the Guardians or whatever, and being infected by the Knocker, who was the cult leader. In the early episodes, she tries to get Fushi to fall in love with her, thinking that it'll cure her depression or something. Women. Am I right? I don't know, man. I don't know. Her thoughts seem to change on a dime. She never really succeeds or fails at getting Fushi to fall in love with her, and she just goes to study abroad at the end. I don't know, man. Mizuha does have a complicated family situation. I get that. But a good dicking down by an ethereal life form is not going to help you solve your family situation. It does get more complicated too. Now, I do think this season provides some thought-provoking moral dilemmas. I don't really have the words to describe why this show doesn't do it for me. Which makes me a bad reviewer, but you all knew that already. Again, I've said this a gazillion times. I do think this is a good show, but just for me personally, I'd rather be watching One Piece. Okay, sequels. Time for sequels. Oshi no Ko, Season 3. God, every time I watch this show, I'm like in awe. This might have the most pleasing to look at art style of any anime ever. Now, I have not talked about my feelings about this second half of Oshi no Ko before, but I do believe this is where the story starts a bit of a downward spiral. And I'm not going to say it coincides with the introduction of that weird godchild, but I wouldn't say this is doing anything wrong necessarily. Because Oshi no Ko has always been about showcasing the dark sides of showbiz while searching for clues about Ai's murder in the background. And I think the escalation of things here and the twists the story takes are good. You know, Ruby kind of going rogue, starting around when they filmed for Poppin' 2, when she discovered her doctor's death, now carrying over to this season, seeing how she's changed. It's all good stuff. And of course, I do think doing Ai's documentary is the right direction for this story. Maybe it's just the ending that leaves a sour taste in the mouth. We'll get there when we get there. I guess this season just feels a little less focused compared to the previous two. Not necessarily in a bad way, but because it does kind of jump all over the place between the stuff that all the different characters are getting up to and sort of building up to the documentary filming, there's not much to sink your teeth into with this specific season. I guess you'd call this particular stretch of the series like necessary, but not as good as the previous two as a standalone season. Again, we are still diving into the harsh realities of showbiz here, and it still doesn't pull any punches. But I really liked season 2 on its own because most everything they did tied back to the Tokyo Blade stage play, and this time around, the only thing we're really watching happen as it goes on is Ruby's skyrocketing popularity as a mainstream star, which, again, is necessary for the story, as opposed to there being like a single goal that we can trace everything back to. Hence why I said it feels less focused in this season. But again, the drama, the tension between various characters, the way Aqua and Ruby use the cards they have intentionally to get what they want from the people they meet in the industry, Aqua going so far as to reveal that he and Ruby are Ai's kids to save Kana's career, which causes friction with Ruby. It's all good stuff on its own, and again, necessary. So yeah, this is still good, really good, actually. But as far as standalone seasons go, I got more out of the previous two seasons. And, well, we are headed for that ending, so that's a thing as well. And in case you're still here and wondering, no, I don't have anything to say about Aqua and Ruby's special relationship. I actually think it's perfectly fine and takes away nothing from the story, namely because they only act upon it with, all things considered, only slightly overblown displays of affection. They never consider getting married for real. So frankly, if you're bothered by these two, you are blissfully ignorant. And I truly hope you stay that way. Because if I could unsee some of the things anime has brought upon my eyes, I would. Next up is MF Ghost, Season 3. Once again, I find myself surprised. The seasons of this are getting better and better. This season actually wraps up a big angle that was sort of like teased from very early on in Season 1 and actually handles it surprisingly well. Like, paced nicely and delivered in a way that actually makes you feel the complex emotions Kanata is feeling. It's good. And also the romance between the main two this season, it really isn't bad at all. In this season, Kanata actually learns that Ren is an angel, like pretty early on in the season. which actually helps them become closer, so there's no longer that barrier between them. I am finding it more and more sweet as this goes on. And really most of this is still spent on the racing, which is obviously what people who are watching season 3 of this came here for. And which, like most sports anime, seems based in reality and technically sound, in the sense that a lot of what Kanata pulls off is theoretically, realistically possible, but you just need crazy luck and or skills to actually pull any of that off. And it even goes so far as to explain the physics and stuff involved for people who care. And the races themselves, with all the characters involved, I think are pretty well paced and give you small breaks in the middle with the sometimes awkward angel scenes. So the core of this show, the racing, is solid. And I do think the very tangled web of racers and mechanics and all that has started to sort of iron itself out as this goes on, right? Like in season 1, it was a lot to take in and it seemed kind of confusing, but as you see more and more of them between the races and whatnot, it all steadily gets clearer. Although I don't really know why that blonde girl who was part of Kanata's driving school class was there in this season. I mean, maybe for drama, I guess. She incited a bit more urgency into Ren, but as part of the race, like, still not sure what she's meant to achieve as an obstacle for Kanata. But this season did start in the middle of a race and also left off in the middle of another race, which isn't exactly great pacing, but I guess if you binge it all after next season, it'll be fine. You won't even notice. This is still oddly sexually charged at random points where it probably shouldn't be, especially with some characters who definitely shouldn't be. In fact, there's a character who by all accounts is on the Epstein files, but you know, that's none of my business. Overall, this is still pretty fun. It's got its head on straight. I'm enjoying myself. Next up is My Hero Academia Vigilantes Season 2. This is mostly just going to be me reiterating what I said last time when I reviewed Season 1. This is everything a spin-off show for a big shonen universe should be and more. A small group of fresh main characters with some familiar faces from the main series mixed in. Vigilantes is just weird and fun, right? Like, it's not afraid to dive further into the weirder, more unusual aspects of the My Hero Academia universe that don't get as much focus in the main story. Like the guys with the weird demi-human mutational quirks, a lot of the smaller scale villain appearances that happen frequently that pro heroes deal with all the time, that just appear out of nowhere and endanger the citizens. Even just the new characters Vigilantes introduces usually have just the weirdest, like the Crab Girl comes to mind. It's just fun and silly. Even a lot of what actually happens to Koichi, Pop, and the others is mixing silliness in with the sense of danger, which I think it does very well. And even just in general, the writing and characters all show such a lighthearted sense of humor, which comes across so easily. And even while all the goofy stuff is happening, guys like Tsukauchi are unraveling the stuff with Trigger, the quirk-boosting drug, and the lightning guy with the scar, which adds another layer of intrigue behind everything. And again, it further expands the world of My Hero Academia, because it's like, oh wow, so stuff like this could be going on at any given time, or like schemes like this one were going on even long before All For One's Shigaraki scheme even came into the picture, right? I mean, this is like the prelude to a lot of stuff we see in the main story, right? Like, there are Nomu prototypes in this. Even the story of Knuckle Duster and the antagonist of this entire series is like a ripple effect of what would happen when someone has their quirk stolen by All For One. And even beyond all that, we get into Shirakumo's backstory here, who's a character that we know was pivotal to Aizawa's past that the main show never gives much time to, because it's just not really necessary. The few episodes that cover those three, Aizawa, Mike, and Shirakumo as students, is just an expansion of what we already know that helps us understand Aizawa better. Plus, we even dive into CC's backstory with his wife a bit, which plays into his character arc. There's even some Tsukauchi and Makoto lore. So yeah, again, everything a spin-off show should be and more. I think it's worth mentioning that it's at this point in the series that Pop noticeably starts taking a back seat, which I think is a bit of a shame. Not because Koichi's bad, but I just think Vigilantes as a series could have done more with her, because we're really starting to see her move into her damsel in distress role that she takes for pretty much the rest of the series. Like, Koichi's great and all, and really the series is all about him and his growth, but yeah, just a bit of a shame about Pop. Although I do genuinely like all of the Koichi and pop romance stuff, I think it's really cute. It's not shoved down your throat at all, and it still holds on to the dynamic they've always had. But also, not many of the other Vigilante-specific characters who stick around are worth all that much in the grand scheme of things. But they're usually at least kind of silly, so I guess it's fine. But besides that, as far as the adaptation itself goes of the manga, visuals are great, a lot of cool animation sequences this season. Music and voice acting is always fantastic. Pacing is pretty fast as well. So yeah, good stuff. I hope they finish this. I'm curious how the final battle would be paced when it's not chapter by chapter every other week. Next up is Hell Teacher Jigoku Sensei Nube Part 2. This kind of falls into the kind of episodic, but also not entirely episodic, category that a lot of recent reboots fall into. This one's good as well. It does a lot of things that it doesn't need to, but I'm glad that it did. It's those things that happen at kind of random points throughout that keep this one out of fully episodic territory. Like we learn in this part that Nube had an exorcist teacher when he was a kid as well, which helped him gain confidence at a time when all the other kids were bullying him for being weird and creepy. And so her role as like his mentor, she helped him understand his powers and why he should use them. And even in this part, Nube manages to win over Ritsuko Sensei. Mostly. That's progression. Some episodes even dive a little deeper into some of the recurring characters' fears and stuff, which helps us learn a little more about them. Again, it's nice. And I think the writing is pretty fun for what this is, and the dynamic between Nube and his students is decent as well. I guess the only thing this doesn't do that maybe it should have is include more active involvement with that sort of the big bad guy who was introduced at the start of the first season. I think we're supposed to tie a lot of those spirit-related incidents to him, even though he's at the school or whatever, unclear. Like maybe he's just observing from the sidelines, like that guy in the corner at the party meme. But yeah, this is a fun little watch, especially with the inclusion of his dead teacher, Nube's dead teacher in this, and like the backstory with that and how it comes full circle at the end. This is a solid, fun little watch. I like it. Next up is Anyway, I'm Falling in Love with You, Season 2. This one is still a little weird, but not bad. It's super heavy in the romance drama direction, like in a soap opera kind of way. It feels like a shoujo anime version of something that I'd find my mom watching at 10 p.m. when I went to the kitchen to get cookies to eat while I hid under the covers and played Pokemon. That being said, I really do think that it nails what it's going for, because it actually does sort of sort out the mess of a harem that it was during last season. Everyone gets closure, including that guy I remember pointing out last season who kind of felt out of place in the harem, and he was, because turns out he's gay. He has his own little character arc with backstory as well, which is decent. And I think this show really gets across the melancholic feeling of growing up and reflecting on your younger days, while also trying to find that happiness and stir up strong emotions again, even as an adult. Like, at the end, the main girl has a little monologue that's like, "Oh, if I could go back to those days, I'm sure I would want to laugh, cry, fall in love, just the same as I did." And that kind of sums it up. This has a lot of coming of age elements that you actually see the characters accept as adults, since this frequently jumps between their high school days and their adulting days, with various stages in between. Those timeline jumps are a little jarring and probably not really necessary, but they work okay since in some episodes they're focusing on one character or storyline in particular. But yeah, I mean, for what this is, man, it's good. You know, I mean, it's not my thing at all, so I hesitate to give it higher praise than that, because I'm not sure if it'd be warranted or not. But the characters don't feel half-baked anymore, and I feel like I understand them a lot more after this season, since they all confront their deepest, darkest feelings and regrets in their lives and stuff. The romance between Mizuho and Kizuki is a little too overdramatic and soap opera-y for my taste, but it's fine. Like, yeah. The show, though, it is good, like surprisingly complete for a 24-episode endeavor of the reverse harem shoujo anime variety. Very, very soap opera. Very soap opera. Next up is Blue Miburo, Season 2. I probably already said this last time, but I just can't shake the feeling that this is just trying to be Windbreaker if it was set in the 1860s, but it's not as good as Windbreaker. The show just does things. It just throws things at you repeatedly, and nothing really has time to sink in. Not to mention, there are too many characters that are supposed to be important. This whole season is pretty much about Serizawa, who's like the big kahuna of the Kyoto Miburo, and I understand what really happened with Serizawa's plan for the most part, and that he kind of baited the 4 dudes into coming after him, but I don't really get why. Because I'm pretty sure he knew he was gonna die. Like, I think there was something about him saying like he wanted the perfect death or something like that, because he had no more unfinished business until he did. Oh, if that kid I put in some chick had been born, he'd be about this age. Yeah, sure, man. But the big turning point of this season was when this little girl died in the wilderness, and Serizawa saw her and talked to her before she died, but she asked him not to tell anyone where she was, and he didn't. And that just came out of nowhere. I'm pretty sure the little girl in question literally got introduced to the same episode she died. I don't know that for sure, but that episode does start with a, like, I love my little girl life introduction to that little girl character. So that came out of nowhere, and that's like the whole turning point of this season's plot. That's the whole turning point for this like infighting storyline that's happening. But it was part of Serizawa's plot, which is part of why the guys find him irredeemable and try to assassinate him. I don't know. And then the thing that really like sets the assassination plan into motion was when some other guy in the Miburo committed seppuku. I don't really understand why he did that. He was like, all right, man, I know you want a cool death, and if I go out here, those guys will definitely try to assassinate you in 1 week at exactly 1:18 a.m. Good luck. I just don't really know. And even as this big scheme plays out, the main character, Neo, who last season was basically all about staying true to his principles and being able to solve things outside of how the Miburo normally solve things, that being violence. So Neo's whole thing is solving things not using violence. So Neo, I assumed, was meant to be the levity of the Miburo who would take action on his own with non-violent ways, even if it meant directly going against what the rest of the squad was doing and causing friction or disarray within the Miburo. But then, he ends up dealing the killing blow to Serizawa, who was just gonna bleed out and die anyway. So that on its own I understand. There was no saving him, right? But then after that, like in the epilogue of this season essentially, the rest of the Miburo are just like, yeah, well, you're gonna start going on missions like a big boy now, and you're gonna have to deal with violence. You're one of us now, kid. And Neo just kind of accepts it that way. And between him and the other 2 younger boys around his age, who I also thought were pretty good this season, they had nice roles, I do think there's like a coming of age arc where they're starting to take responsibility for their actions and finding out what the real world is like. And the moment that these other 2 guys took up the big kahuna role after Serizawa was gone, that's a good moment. So there's definitely something here, but I guess it's not all the way there. I don't know. Again, maybe I'm the one who doesn't get it. But yeah, it is fine though, adaptation-wise. Like, it's dramatic, paced fairly well, aside from when it introduces plot twists out of nowhere. But yeah, it's decent. I want to like it more. I don't know what they're trying to do with Neo. I don't know why he wanted to die. Alright, next up is Chained Soldier, Season 2. I don't remember exactly how I talked about Season 1 of this, but I feel like I was mostly positive. And newsflash, I still am. This is squarely in pretty good territory. As an action show, it has all the fundamentals. Big world with a lot of characters that doesn't feel too overwhelming, since it's pretty clear who's important and who's not. The extent of the main character's abilities aren't entirely known, but he works with the other characters to hone them and become stronger as other characters do the same. There's a group of big bads that are evil enough to make a viewer want the good guys to take them down. There's a training arc that gets interrupted by a sudden crisis. Plus, we got backstory and family drama with Himari. There's a Gojo equivalent in the new commander lady. Yeah, Ren? Is that her name? Plus, there's a good amount of other new characters this season. it's really not bad at all. I don't think this goes far beyond that in terms of like intriguing elements, but that's because it invests all its free time into sexy fan service, right? And for what it is, I don't think it's all that overbearing at any point, and I don't feel like it takes much away from the story. Plus, in fairness to it, I think it does a great job of hitting all the right notes in like the personalities and the contrasting tropes in the women that could make someone, a gooner per se, who may not be as interested in the story, sit through it to get more fan service. Which is absolutely a credit to the show. It's intentional, so fair play to it. And the main character is in a really nice middle ground between wuss and Chad. Maybe a bit into wuss territory, but not too far, which helps the fan service land better without becoming too much. I mean, I don't really have much to offer here. Like, for what it is, I dare say it's exactly what it's trying to be. And the anime itself is strong visually as well, so the adaptation's good. Fight scenes are solid, the story isn't particularly compelling in comparison to other action anime, but it doesn't fall short on its own merits either. It just is what it is. There's a big old climactic fight scene at the end involving most of the characters. It ends in a pretty satisfying way. What else do you want, man? Boobs, we got them. Done. Next up is Hell's Paradise, Season 2. A couple seasons back, I mentioned how I covered Season 1 of a show early on in my Roundup career and was a little iffy on it, but have since changed my tune and now have a pretty positive opinion on it. Same thing here. I feel like for all of Season 1, I kind of struggled to figure out the direction that this was going in. The visuals were amazing and the characters were solid, but I just didn't know enough yet. And since Season 1 aired, I read the whole manga, which changed my opinion of the series. But even if I hadn't read the manga, I think Season 2 would have solved any notable issues I had with the show. It's very good. This one spends a good chunk of time early on in the season addressing a lot of the information I was unclear about. Stuff like what Tau is, how and why the island they're on even exists, what the ultimate goal of the Tensen is. Basically everything I need to know to understand why I should care and get invested in the narrative, right? Because even the coolest fights visually can feel empty if I don't even understand why they're happening beyond just the characters are trying not to die. Like literally 2 or 3 episodes into Season 2 and I feel like I understand pretty much every single remaining character better than I did coming out of Season 1. And even there's a pretty significant twist early on in the season with the introduction of Shugen, who causes a massive butterfly effect going forward. One thing worth mentioning is that I do think Season 1, without the context of the rest of the series, feels oddly directionless. Like if you just look at Season 1 by itself, it doesn't really feel like it knows what it's doing with itself yet. Like it's a cool concept and the visuals are amazing, but it just feels like it's doing things without really making us, the viewers, understand why. But by Season 2, we have a very concrete direction for the story. We're finally exploring the backstories of these characters, which all makes this story feel like it means something, right? It even feels like it's retroactively giving meaning to deaths that happened last season. And this criticism really isn't anything, right? It's just a pacing issue with the anime adaptation specifically, and in real time, because I think if you binge Season 1 and then Season 2 back to back, this problem is non-existent. This is just how I experience the show. Just sharing with the class, I guess. Anyway, the show's great. Visuals and fight scenes are stunning, the story is solid, setting is super unique and interesting, characters are pretty compelling. Nice twists and turns throughout this. The Tensen are a super cool idea, and you can see how cool the ideas are with the fights executed the way they were. Holy moly. It's got all the ingredients an action anime needs in the modern day. And a lot about the actual story that unfolds, like what we learn about the Tensen and what the island is actually for, is just unsettling and weird and a little existential. So this is the kind of show that someone who thinks they've seen it all when it comes to anime will enjoy. Frieren, Beyond Journey's End, Season 2. The fuck do you want me to say? The show's fucking beautiful. Like, I've mentioned this before, personally, Frieren is far from my favorite show. I'm not even sure it makes top 25 or even 50 on my personal list of favorites, right? But as far as adapting source material into something that as many people as possible will enjoy in the modern day, there aren't many if any shows that do it better than Frieren. The visuals are stunning, the characters are built well in a way that so easily gets you to like them. The overall pacing is intentionally slow, where the storyboarding shows off so much of this fantasy world and different aspects of the characters, and the action sequences when they do appear are really, really good, and even the fact that there's nothing concrete that the story's building toward at any given point actually adds to the just sit down and enjoy this for what it is factor that so many series in the modern day do very well, and that appeals to more casual viewers in this day and age. There's enough stakes that you can emotionally invest, but it's never as involved as a shonen anime per se might be, to the point that you have to be so invested and understand everything about it just to enjoy it. With Frieren, you can just enjoy it casually without much investment, which is great for a lot of casual viewers out there. This particular season was so short that I don't have much to say about what actually happens, and actually I think this show's overall strongest arc is what will likely come with season 3, but again, it's just Frieren, Fern, and Stark wandering around, getting themselves mixed up in various situations in this fantasy world, and just watching them interact with everything in their own ways is cute and enjoyable. And of course, usually what they do is reminiscent of something Frieren did during her journey with Himmel, so we get a big old flashback too, showing all the things Frieren learned from her first journey. You know how it goes by now. And like I said, we did get a tease for it. I think the best part of Frieren is what will be coming up in season 3. So this season just didn't have a lot I feel like I need to talk about, but it is a very beautiful show. So if you liked season 1, absolutely worth coming back for season 2. Finally, a little gift for me, Medalist Season 2. It's no secret, I'm a big old Medalist fan. Not so much in the sense that I know every character's name or figure skating is my shit, but just as an artistic creation. I think it just nails exactly what it's trying to do and has a lot of fun while it's doing it. And that is all I could ever ask for out of a manga anime series. Just one of the things Medalist does amazingly that I think not necessarily other sports anime don't do, but it's just heightened in this world of figure skating. The world of sports is extremely cutthroat. It's ruthless. You as an athlete put in so much effort over the course of years, and one major fuck up in the moment of truth in front of some old dudes and you're done. And ultimately, I think a lot of athletes, even in real life, ask themselves, why even bother? Because especially at the level we see the kids in Medalist at, it's not like their ultimate goal is to make a living by figure skating when they grow up, necessarily. They just want to be the best they can be. But I also think Medalist, even without words, conveys that question can be answered with a simple love of the sport. You have to start figure skating from really young to adjust your legs and body to it. And even kids at age like 11 or 12 who are still doing it at such a high level are doing it because they love to do it. And that can all come crashing down at the critical moment, but that's also part of the thrill of it. But the point is, you can't coast by just on your own ideals or even on your ability to adapt in figure skating. You have no teammates in a performance. You only have all your practice and muscle memory. And the potential to fuck up is significantly higher here than in probably any other sport. That ice is unforgiving, dog. Even something like the texture of the ice you're on can put the whole performance in jeopardy. So since Medalist makes you understand that, I think that's also how you get super invested in it. Or at least, that's part of how it got me. Another thing I mentioned when I talked about season 1 was how this show has a very good network of characters. Like any good sports anime, there are a lot of characters in various roles here, and I think it's just done masterfully in this show. No one who's taking up space feels like they're doing so for no reason, but also the ones who aren't important don't take too much time. Even from a super brief exchange between a coach and an athlete who are only here to do a cute little performance while someone explains the rules over top of it, you can get a grasp of that coach and athlete relationship from that brief exchange. And it's not all sunshine and rainbows, because each coach, who probably isn't making six figures or anything, has their own reasons for doing what they do, on top of their athlete having a completely different reason for skating. All of it just feels like it could be real life, right? It just adds to your immersion into this whole wide world of figure skating we're diving into. And again, I will preach this till the cows come home. Inori and Tsukasa are wonderful together. Just an absolute model coach and athlete dynamic. And actually getting back into the anime made me realize that part of the reason they're so much fun together is because they share the same brand of awkwardly endearing in interacting with the other characters, but also their love for the sport is the same as well. Just the pure relationship they share, the way they approach figure skating so earnestly and with so much genuine hard work. I just love them. I just love Inori and Tsukasa. I would talk more about Hikaru as well, but I'll save that for when the movie drops. But yeah, I don't really feel like I need to talk much about what actually goes down in this season because it was kind of short and we're building up to Inori's next confrontation with Hikaru. But yeah, just wonderful stuff. I just love Medalist. And the 3D animation in this, still really great as well. I just love this show, man. I don't know if that movie will be in theaters here in the US, but if it is, I'm there day one. And I actually think this is tricky to say like, oh, you all need to go and watch Medalist, because I don't think Medalist has mass appeal. But I just think as a story that's about what it's about, this does pretty much everything right. So, all right, that's enough Roundup for me and for everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Hopefully, my spring Roundup will be out in July. That seems like wishful thinking. But I can dream. This will be out Saturday, hopefully. So, got some good stuff. Spring season. A lot of stuff I'm already familiar with. 2 big covers coming out very soon on Silver Storm. My cover of Come Alive from Zenless Zone Zero is out on Friday. Make sure to give it a watch. Hypertoria and I have had that cooking for a long while. And then an exclusive reveal. Wind's Anthem will be after that. So, tune in. Subscribe to Silver Storm, the music channel. Don't subscribe. What are you even doing here? Fucking asshole.